The sounds reached Reed Harper while he was cataloging soil samples from the agricultural deck. Strange clicking noises mixed with something that made his chest feel tight, though he couldn't explain why. He set down his data pad and followed the sound through the winding corridors of Confluence Station. Most people ignored unusual noises here. The station housed 17 different species, and weird sounds were just part of daily life. But something about these particular sounds made Reed's instincts scream that something was wrong. He found them in Bay 7, tucked between cargo containers that smelled like exotic spices and machine oil. 3 small creatures huddled together, their bodies covered in soft gray fuzz that looked almost like down feathers. They had large black eyes that reflected the dim lights, and tiny hands that clutched at each other. Reed recognized them as Chitauri young, probably no older than human toddlers. They were all looking at something massive behind them. Reed stepped closer and his breath caught. A moth, but calling it just a moth felt like calling a whale just a fish. The creature was enormous, easily the size of a small shuttle. Its wings spread across the floor, covered in patterns that seemed to glow faintly even in the darkness. The wings were beautiful, or they had been. Now they were torn in several places with fluid leaking from the wounds. Parts of the creature's body showed burns, the kind Reed recognized from chemical exposure. The smallest Chitauri child made that sound again, the one that had drawn Reed here. It was crying. All 3 of them were crying, their tiny bodies shaking. Reed knelt down slowly, keeping his distance so he wouldn't scare them. He had learned enough Chitauri language to try basic communication. "I am Reed, I am a doctor. Can I help?" The oldest child, barely reaching Reed's knee in height, looked at him with those huge dark eyes. "Please," the child said in heavily accented but understandable human speech. They heard Softglow. "They hurt her bad. Softglow is the moth?" Reed asked gently. All 3 children nodded together. The oldest one spoke again. "She is our mother's friend. Our mother died. Softglow takes care of us now. But bad people came. They tried to steal things. Softglow protected us. They hurt her with fire and sharp things." Reed moved closer to examine the giant moth. Softglow's breathing was shallow and irregular. The torn wing membranes would need careful repair. The chemical burns required immediate treatment. The bioluminescent organs along her body were flickering weakly, some completely dark. This creature needed serious medical attention, and soon. "Stay here," Reed told the children. "I will get help." He found the nearest station security officer, a tall crystalline being named Voss. "There are 3 Chitauri children in Bay 7 with an injured creature. The creature needs medical care immediately." Voss barely looked up from his display screen. "What kind of creature?" "A lumen wing moth, large one. It's badly hurt." "Not my department," Voss said flatly. "Contact animal control if it's a pest problem." "It's not a pest. It's the children's guardian. Someone attacked it." Voss finally looked at Reed with faceted eyes that showed no emotion. "The children should contact their embassy. The creature isn't a station priority." Reed felt his jaw tighten. 3 children are crying over their dying guardian and you don't care? "Dr. Harper, station protocol is clear. Medical resources are allocated for sentient beings only. The creature doesn't qualify. If it dies, the children can get another pet." Reed stared at Voss for a long moment, then turned and walked away before he said something that would get him thrown in the brig. He went straight to the medical bay and started gathering supplies. Bandages, synthetic tissue, pain medication, antibiotics. Everything he could carry. "What are you doing?" asked Dr. Isla, the station's head physician. She was human too, but had been here much longer than Reed. "There's an injured creature in Bay 7. 3 orphaned children are depending on it for protection and care. It's dying." Isla shook her head. "Reed, you know the rules. We can't use medical supplies on non-sentient fauna." "Why not?" "Because resources are limited. We have to prioritize sentient life." "Those children are sentient," Reed said, shoving supplies into a bag. "And they're suffering right now watching their guardian die." "Doesn't that count?" "The council doesn't see it that way. They'll see it as wasteful sentiment." Reed zipped up the bag. "On Earth, we judge people by how they treat animals. We measure civilization by how we care for creatures that can't speak for themselves. This isn't Earth," Isla reminded him gently. "Maybe it should be," Reed said, and left with the supplies. When he returned to Bay 7, the children hadn't moved. They were still clustered around Softglow, stroking her fuzzy body with their tiny hands. The Moth's wings twitched slightly at their touch. Reed knelt beside them and opened his bag. I'm going to try to help her. I need you to tell me if she gets scared or if I hurt her, okay? The oldest child, who Reed learned was called Pip, nodded seriously. I can feel her emotions a little bit. We have a connection. Good. That will help. Reed started with the burns. He cleaned them carefully and applied a gel that would protect the wounds while they healed. The children watched every movement. Softglow made a soft chirping sound. Not quite a cry, but not quite calm either. She is scared, Pip said, but she knows you are trying to help. Tell her I'll be as gentle as I can. As Reed worked on the smaller injuries, he heard footsteps behind him. He didn't look up. More people arriving to tell him to stop, probably. Let them come. He wasn't leaving these children alone with their dying guardian, Dr. Harper. The voice was cold and official. You are using unauthorized medical supplies on a non-sentient creature. This is a violation of Station Protocol 774. You need to stop immediately. Reed kept working. Not going to happen. This is a direct order. Then you'll have to arrest me, Reed said calmly, applying bandages to Softglow's damaged wing. Because I'm not stopping. Behind him he heard more footsteps. More officials coming to make him stop. But he also heard something else. Other voices. Human voices. What's going on here? Someone asked. Reed didn't look up from his work, but he smiled slightly. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson about what really mattered. Reed had always believed that space would be full of wonders and kindness. He had been wrong about the kindness part. As he finished bandaging another torn section of Softglow's wing, Commander Hollis arrived with a full security detail. Hollis was a lumen, a being made of living crystal that refracted light in rainbow patterns. Beautiful to look at, cold in every other way. The commander stood at the entrance to Bay 7 with arms crossed, watching Reed work with obvious disapproval. This ends now, Dr. Harper. Reed looked up briefly, then returned to examining Softglow's damaged bioluminescent organs. I'm in the middle of treating critical injuries. It ends when I'm done. You are wasting valuable resources on an animal. I'm saving a life that matters to 3 orphaned children, Reed corrected. There's a difference. Pip stepped forward, tiny body trembling but voice steady. Please, Commander. Softglow is family. She is all we have left. Hollis didn't even look at the child. Your people have an embassy on station. They should have arranged proper care for you after your mother passed. Becoming attached to a creature is not appropriate. The middle child started crying again, that heartbreaking sound that had first drawn Reed to this place. The youngest wrapped tiny arms around Softglow's fuzzy body and wouldn't let go. Reed stood up slowly, positioning himself between Hollis and the children. Let me tell you a story, Commander. On Earth, we had these animals called dogs. They weren't as smart as humans. They couldn't talk, couldn't build things, couldn't do math. By your definition, they weren't sentient. But they loved us anyway. They protected our children. They guided blind people. They found lost hikers in mountains and pulled people from burning buildings. We didn't call them pets. We called them family. A sentimental story, Hollis said, but irrelevant. This station operates on logic and efficiency, not emotion. Is it logical to let children suffer when we have the power to help? Reed asked. Is it efficient to teach young people that laws matter more than compassion? A crowd had gathered now. Reed recognized several humans, but also members of other species. They watched in silence. Some looked curious. Others looked uncomfortable. None of them spoke up. Reed turned back to Softglow and resumed working. The Moth's breathing had stabilized somewhat, but she was far from safe. The wing repairs would take hours. The chemical burns needed constant monitoring, and the bioluminescent organs were the real problem. They were part of how Softglow communicated with the children, how she showed emotion and health status. If those died completely, even if Reed saved her life, she would never be the same. I spoke with the Chitauri ambassador, Hollis said behind him. He agrees the situation is embarrassing. These children clinging to a lower creature shows how backward some of his people remain. He has arranged for them to be sent to a group home where they will be properly educated. Pip gasped. The other children pressed closer to Softglow, their tiny faces showing pure terror. They're taking us away from her? Pip whispered. Reed's hand stilled on Softglow's wing. He looked at the commander. really looked at him, trying to find some hint of understanding or mercy in that crystalline face. He found nothing. On Earth, Reed said quietly, we had a saying, you can judge a society by how it treats its animals. You know what we learned? Societies that are cruel to animals are eventually cruel to everyone. It starts with it's just an animal and ends with they're just that other group we don't care about. Your human philosophy does not govern this station, Hollis replied. Maybe it should. The crowd murmured at that. Reed heard surprised sounds from multiple species. Apparently nobody challenged the commander directly. Well, Reed thought, there was a first time for everything. A human woman pushed through the crowd. Reed recognized Lily, an engineer he had shared meals with a few times. She carried a large case of tools and equipment. I heard you might need some help, Lily said, kneeling beside Reed. I designed life support systems for 6 different species. I think I can rig something to help stabilize your patient. Thank you, Reed said, relief flooding through him. Dr. Harper, Hollis's voice took on a warning tone. Engineer Lily, you are both violating direct orders. There will be consequences. Lily didn't look up from her work. Write me up then. I've got a patient to help. Another human joined them, then another. Within minutes, 5 humans were working together to help Softglow. One held supplies. Another monitored vital signs using adapted equipment. A third helped Lily build a better support structure for the damaged wings. The non-human members of the crowd watched with expressions Reed couldn't quite read. Confusion, maybe. Or perhaps they were starting to wonder why humans would risk their careers for a creature they had never met before. Pip touched Reed's arm gently. Why are you doing this? You don't even know us. Reed looked at the small child, thinking of his sister's kids back on Earth. Thinking of his old dog who had died of old age just before Reed left for the stars. Thinking of every animal that had ever trusted a human with its life. Because it's right, Reed said simply, and because someone has to show the galaxy that being strong doesn't mean being cruel. The oldest child's eyes filled with tears again, but different tears this time. Our mother used to say that. She said real strength is choosing kindness when you could choose power. Your mother was wise. Reed returned to his work. Softglow's wing membranes were responding to the synthetic tissue patches. The burns were cleaned and treated. Now came the hardest part. The bioluminescent organs were biological and complex. If Reed made a mistake, he could destroy them permanently. I need complete silence, Reed announced. And better light. Lily, can you rig something? Already on it, Lily said, positioning portable lamps around them. Hollis made a disgusted sound. This is absurd. All of you will face disciplinary action. Your careers on this station are finished. Reed picked up a microscalpel, preparing to begin the delicate work of reconnecting damaged neural pathways in Softglow's bioluminescent system. His hands were steady despite the threat hanging over him. Commander, Reed said without looking up, if saving a life ends my career, then I chose the right career to lose. Softglow made a soft sound, and her remaining working lights pulsed once. Weakly, but there. She was still fighting. The children pressed closer, their tiny hands on her body willing her to survive. And Reed got to work knowing that everything he believed about humanity's place in the galaxy was about to be tested. The neural pathways inside Softglow's bioluminescent organs looked like tiny threads of light under Reed's magnification scope. Each one needed to be carefully reconnected to restore the Moth's ability to glow and communicate properly. One wrong move and the delicate tissue would die completely. Reed's hands moved with precision he didn't know he possessed. Behind him, Lily had successfully created a support frame that held Softglow's massive wings in optimal healing position. The other humans worked quietly, passing supplies and monitoring readings on jury-rigged equipment that was technically designed for other purposes. Her heartbeat is getting stronger, reported Owen, a human medic who had abandoned his shift to help. Whatever you're doing is working. Pip knelt beside Reed, watching every movement. Can she feel what you're doing? Probably, Reed admitted. But the pain medication should help. Does she seem calm to you? The child closed large dark eyes for a moment, concentrating. She is scared. But she trusts you. She knows you're trying to help. Tell her to hang on just a little longer. Pip placed tiny hands on Softglow's fuzzy body and made a series of clicking sounds mixed with soft chirps. The Moth's antenna twitched slightly in response. One of her damaged light organs flickered weakly, like a dying star trying to shine one more time. Reed worked for another hour in focused silence. The crowd outside Base 7 had grown. Word was spreading through the station about the human doctor defying orders to save an alien creature. Some people left disgusted. Others stayed to watch, though Reed couldn't spare attention to wonder why. Commander Hollis remained as well, standing like a crystal statue of disapproval. Security guards flanked him, waiting for orders to stop the procedure by force if necessary. "The council has been notified," Hollis announced. "They are most displeased." "They can get in line," Lily muttered, adjusting the wing support frame. Reed finished reconnecting the last neural pathway in the first bioluminescent organ. He sat back carefully, watching and waiting. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, like dawn breaking, a soft blue glow began to pulse from deep within Softglow's body. The three children gasped in unison. The middle child started crying again, but this time from relief. "She's coming back," Pip whispered. "I can feel her getting stronger." Reed allowed himself a small smile before moving to the next damaged organ. There were 5 more that needed repair. His back ached from kneeling. His eyes burned from focusing through the magnification scope. His hands trembled slightly from the precise movements required, but he didn't stop. Another human arrived, pushing through the crowd. Dr. Isla, the head physician, carried additional medical supplies. She knelt beside Reed without a word and began organizing the materials for easier access. "Thought you said this wasn't allowed?" Reed said quietly. "It's not," Isla replied, "but I'm old and tired of following bad rules. Besides, you're doing excellent work. Would be ashamed to waste it." One by one, more humans appeared. They brought food and water for Reed and the team. They brought blankets for the children. They brought better equipment liberated from various departments around the station. Each person who joined them did so, knowing they were risking their position, their career, maybe even their freedom. But they came anyway. A human diplomat named Marcus arrived with a camera drone. "Hope you don't mind," he said. "But the folks back home should see this. Hell, the whole galaxy should see this. You're recording?" Hollis demanded. "Public bay, public station, public interest," Marcus replied smoothly. "Unless you want to explain to the Galactic Council why you're censoring humanitarian aid to orphaned children." Hollis's crystalline form flickered with what might have been anger or frustration. Hard to tell with lumens. But he didn't order Marcus to stop recording. Reed worked through the second bioluminescent organ, then the third. Each repair took careful precision and steady hands. Softglow remained still throughout, trusting this strange being who spoke a different language and smelled wrong, but whose touch was gentle, and whose intention was clear. The fourth organ was the most damaged. The chemical burns had nearly destroyed it completely. Reed spent 2 hours on that one alone, rebuilding tissue and coaxing life back into cells that wanted to die. "I don't think this one's going to make it," Reed finally admitted. "The damage is too severe." Pip's face fell. "Will she be okay without it?" "She'll live," Reed said, "but she won't glow as brightly as she used to." "I'm sorry," the child shook their head. "Don't be sorry. You gave her back to us. That's what matters." Reed moved to the fifth organ. This one was easier, suffering mostly from torn connections rather than destroyed tissue. His hands moved faster now, muscle memory taking over as exhaustion set in. Lily brought him water and something that might have been food. Reed ate without tasting it, his focus entirely on his patient. The sixth and final organ was the largest, positioned at the center of Softglow's thorax. It pulsed weakly, struggling to maintain life. Reed could tell this was the main organ, the one that controlled all the others. If this one died, the rest would follow. "This is it," Reed said. "Everyone ready?" The humans around him nodded. The children pressed closer, their tiny faces tense with worry and hope. Reed began the most delicate repair yet. The neural pathways here were complex, interconnected in ways he had never seen before. He worked slowly, carefully, connecting threads of tissue thinner than human hair. An hour passed, then another. The crowd outside had gone completely silent, watching the human doctor perform surgery on an alien creature that most of them considered nothing more than livestock. Finally, Reed connected the last pathway. He sat back, trembling with exhaustion, and waited. For a long moment, nothing happened. Soft Glow lay still, her breathing shallow. The 5 repaired organs glowed dimly, but the 6th remained dark. Then, like a light switch flipping, the central organ blazed to life. Brilliant light poured from Soft Glow's body, washing over the children in waves of blue and green and gold. The Moth's wings spread slightly, carefully supported by Lily's frame. Her antenna moved, touching each child gently. Pip threw tiny arms around Reed's neck, sobbing with relief. "You saved her. You saved our Soft Glow." Reed hugged the child back, feeling tears on his own cheeks. Around him, the humans were smiling, some crying, all clearly moved by what they had just witnessed. Outside the bay, something unexpected happened. The crowd began to applaud. Not just humans. Chitauri workers clapped their small hands together. A few deepers made clicking sounds that served the same purpose. Even some of the crystalline lumens chimed their approval, creating sounds like wind through glass. Commander Hollis stood in the center of it all, looking thoroughly defeated. "You have created a diplomatic incident," the commander said flatly. Reed looked up at him, still kneeling beside Soft Glow and the children. "Good. Maybe it's time the station learned what really matters." Soft Glow's recovery took 3 days. During that time, Bay 7 transformed into something the station had never seen before. Humans set up a proper medical area with monitoring equipment and comfortable resting spaces for the children. They took shifts watching over the giant Moth, making sure her vital signs stayed stable and her wounds healed cleanly. Other species began showing up too. A Chitauri elder arrived with proper food for the children, food they hadn't eaten since their mother died. The elder also brought something called nest fabric, a soft material that the children wrapped around themselves while sleeping near Soft Glow. A younger Deepers brought special water plants that helped clean the air around Soft Glow's resting area. "We used to have creatures," the Deepers said quietly to Reed. "Long ago, before we focused only on technology and logic. We called them wave singers. They are gone now, extinct. We forgot to protect them." The being left quickly after that, but Reed noticed the sadness in those large aquatic eyes. On the 2nd day, Marcus's recording had spread across multiple worlds. Millions of beings watched the footage of a human doctor risking everything to save a creature that wasn't even his own species. The video showed the children crying, showed Reed's careful surgery, showed the moment Soft Glow's lights came back to life. The response was overwhelming. Messages flooded the station from across the galaxy. Some praised Reed's actions, others called him foolish and sentimental. But many, especially from younger generations of various species, began asking questions. Why didn't their own people care for companion creatures anymore? When had efficiency become more important than kindness? Commander Hollis tried to contain the situation. Security still stood outside Bay 7. Official statements were issued about protocol violations and resource management. But the commander couldn't stop the growing movement of people who wanted to see Soft Glow for themselves. On the 3rd day, the station council called an emergency session. Reed was summoned to appear and answer for his actions. "You need a lawyer," Lily insisted. "I don't need a lawyer," Reed replied. "I need the truth." He arrived at the council chambers to find them packed with observers. Every species represented on the station had sent people to watch the proceedings. The human delegation sat in the front row, expression serious but supportive. The council consisted of 7 beings, 1 from each major species alliance. They sat in a semicircle around a central speaking area. Commander Hollis stood to one side, looking satisfied that Reed would finally face consequences. "Dr. Reed Harper," began Counselor Prime, a elderly lumen who served as the council leader, "you are accused of multiple violations. Unauthorized use of medical resources, defying direct orders from station command, inciting public disorder. How do you plead?" "Guilty," Reed said simply. "I did all of those things." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Apparently that wasn't the expected response. "You admit your guilt?" Counselor Prime seemed surprised. "I admit that I broke your rules," Reed clarified. "But I don't admit that what I did was wrong. Rules exist for a reason, Dr. Harper. They maintain order and ensure fair resource distribution. Rules should serve justice," Reed replied. "When they don't, they need to change." A Chitauri counselor leaned forward. "You understand that we cannot have individuals deciding which rules to follow based on personal feelings. That leads to chaos." "With respect, counselor, that's not what happened. I didn't act on personal feelings. I acted on principle. 3 orphaned children were suffering. watching their guardian die, and everyone with the power to help chose not to. That's not order. That's cruelty disguised as policy. The crowd reacted to that, some with anger, some with agreement. Reed saw heads nodding among multiple species. The creature is not sentient by legal definition, another counselor argued. Medical resources must be preserved for thinking beings. Who decides what counts as thinking? Reed asked. Softglow protects those children. She communicates with them through light and pheromones. She grieves for their dead mother. She took injuries defending them from thieves. If that's not thinking, not caring, not being a person in the ways that matter, then I don't understand your definition. Before anyone could respond, the chamber doors opened. 3 small figures walked in, moving carefully so as not to disturb the proceedings. Pip, followed by the 2 younger siblings, approached the speaking area. They looked tiny in the huge chamber designed for adult-sized beings. Please, Pip said in a small voice. May we speak? Counselor Prime looked uncomfortable. This is not a place for children. They're the ones most affected by this decision, Reed said. Shouldn't they have a voice? The human delegation stood up as one. We request that the children be allowed to testify, said Ambassador Chen, the senior human representative. After a hushed consultation, the council agreed. Pip stepped forward, somehow looking both terrified and determined. My name is Pip. My mother died 6 months ago. She was a traitor, traveling between systems. Softglow was her companion and friend for many years. When Mother got sick, Softglow stayed with her. When Mother died, Softglow became our guardian. The child's voice was steady, but Reed could see the effort it took to maintain composure. Softglow keeps us warm at night. She protects us from danger. She glows in patterns that tell us she loves us. When we are sad, she wraps her wings around us. When we are scared, she makes humming sounds that calm us. She is not just an animal. She is family. Pip looked up at the counselors with those huge dark eyes. You have rules that say we should let family die. You have laws that say resources are more important than love. If these are your rules, what are they worth? Silence fell over the chamber. Even Commander Hollis seemed affected by the child's words. The youngest sibling suddenly spoke up, voice high and thin. If Softglow died, we would be alone. Nobody wants us because we are bonded to a creature. The embassy called us backward. They said we embarrass our people. Dr. Reed is the only one who cared that we were sad, the middle child added. He didn't have to help. He didn't know us. We are different species. But he helped anyway. He says that's what humans do. They help when others need it. Is that bad? Reed watched the counselors exchange glances. Some looked troubled. Others remained stern. But all of them were listening. Counselor Prime addressed Reed directly. What you did was against our laws. If we allow this, others will feel free to break rules they disagree with. Good, Reed said. Maybe more people should question rules that cause suffering. Maybe more people should choose compassion over convenience. The elderly Lumen was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, the counselor's crystalline form shifted to a different color. Something Reed had learned meant deep thought or emotional response. I am very old, Counselor Prime said slowly. I remember stories my ancestors told. Before we became beings of pure logic and efficiency, we had creatures we bonded with. They were called light companions. They helped us understand emotion when we were still learning to feel. We decided they were unnecessary as we evolved. We let them die out. The counselor looked at Pip. I had forgotten those stories until now. Until I saw a human risk everything to save what we abandoned. A Deeper's counselor spoke up, voice wavering with emotion. We had wave singers, beautiful creatures who taught our young about music and joy. We let them go extinct in the name of progress. One by one, counselors from different species shared similar stories. Old memories of companion creatures, bonded animals, guardian beings. All of them abandoned or forgotten as civilizations focused on advancement and efficiency. Perhaps, Counselor Prime said quietly, we have lost something important. Perhaps this human has reminded us of what we gave up. The council chamber stayed silent for a long time after Counselor Prime's words. Reed could feel the weight of that silence, heavy with centuries of forgotten bonds and abandoned responsibilities. The children stood together in the speaking area, tiny hands clasped, waiting to learn their fate. Finally, the Chitauri counselor spoke. We cannot simply dismiss the rule violations. There must be accountability. Agreed, said another counselor. But perhaps accountability can take different forms. Ambassador Chen stood up from the human delegation section. If I may address the council, Dr. Harper's actions, while technically illegal, have sparked an important conversation. Millions across the galaxy are now questioning how we treat companion creatures. Young people of multiple species are asking why their societies abandoned such bonds. This isn't just about one human and one moth. This is about what kind of galaxy we want to live in. Commander Hollis stepped forward. The Council cannot reward law-breaking, no matter how sympathetic the cause. That sets a dangerous precedent. The Commander is correct, Counselor Prime acknowledged. However, neither can we ignore that our laws may be flawed. We must find balance. The Deeper's counselor made a rippling gesture that indicated deep thought. I propose a compromise. Dr. Harper broke rules that we all agree existed for good reason at the time. He should face some consequence for that. But he also revealed gaps in our moral framework. Perhaps his consequence should be constructive rather than punitive. Meaning what exactly? Asked Reed. Meaning we drop the criminal charges, Counselor Prime said slowly, clearly thinking through the implications. But in return, you accept responsibility for creating new protocols around companion creature care. You will establish medical standards, training programs, and resource allocation systems. You will teach this station and eventually other stations how to properly care for bonded animals, while still maintaining responsible resource management. Reed blinked. You want me to build an entire department from scratch? Consider it your punishment, the Lumen counselor said with what might have been humor. Bureaucracy is often more challenging than surgery. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Even some of the counselors seemed amused. There is one condition, added the Chitauri counselor. The children keep their soft glow. They are not separated. The embassy's suggestion to send them to a group home is rejected. Instead, they remain here under Dr. Harper's supervision until they are old enough for independence. Pip looked up at Reed with sudden hope. We can stay with you? And soft glow? Looks like it, Reed said, trying not to show how overwhelmed he felt. He had expected punishment, maybe imprisonment. Instead, he was getting 3 children and a giant moth to care for, plus the responsibility of changing interstellar policy. The council took a formal vote. One by one, councilors approved the compromise. Even those who had initially opposed Reed's actions agreed that something needed to change. One more thing, Counselor Prime said. We are establishing what will be called the soft glow provision. Any being who bonds with a companion creature has the right to seek medical care for that creature. Resources will be allocated fairly, and no one will be punished for caring for a non-sentient life that depends on them. The crowd erupted in applause. Beings of multiple species stood, showing approval in their various ways. The human delegation cheered openly. Reed saw Owen and Lily in the back, both grinning widely. Commander Hollis stood rigid, clearly unhappy but unable to argue with a formal council decision. This session is concluded, Counselor Prime announced. Dr. Harper, please remain. We have much to discuss about your new responsibilities. As the crowd began filing out, many people stopped to speak with Reed. A young Lumen asked about bringing their pet crystal grower to the station. A Chitauri worker wanted to know if their family's nest guardian could receive proper veterinary care. A Deepers requested information about restoring wave singer populations. The requests kept coming. Reed realized that his impromptu surgery on Softglow had opened a floodgate. Beings across the galaxy were suddenly remembering, suddenly caring, suddenly wanting to rebuild the bonds their ancestors had abandoned. Pip and the siblings stayed close to Reed throughout the meetings. They had been granted permission to live in his quarters until proper housing could be arranged. Reed had no idea how he was going to manage 3 children, a giant moth, and building an entirely new station department. But he would figure it out. Later that evening, after hours of meetings and planning sessions, Reed returned to Bay 7 to check on Softglow. The moth was awake and moving carefully, testing her repaired wings. The healing was progressing well. In a few more days, she would be strong enough to move to better accommodations. The children were already there, curled up against Softglow's fuzzy body. The moth's bioluminescent organs glowed softly, pulsing in a rhythm that seemed to comfort them. When Reed approached, Softglow's antenna swiveled toward him. One wing lifted slightly, an invitation. Reed sat down carefully, leaning against the moth's warm side. Pip shifted closer, small head resting against Reed's shoulder. Thank you, the child whispered. For everything. You're welcome, Reed replied. Though I think your testimony is what really changed minds. You were very brave. Mama used to say that speaking truth is the bravest thing anyone can do. Your mama was right about a lot of things. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside Base 7, the station continued its normal operations. Ships docked and departed. Trade negotiations happened. Diplomats argued over treaties. But inside this small bay, 3 orphaned children, 1 recovering Moth and 1 exhausted human doctor, had started something that would change the galaxy forever. Lily arrived with food and news. You're not going to believe this. 5 other stations have contacted the Council asking about implementing the soft glow provision. 3 planets want to establish companion creature protection laws. And there's a group of scientists asking permission to start a wave singer restoration project. That was fast, Reed said. You went viral, Lily explained. Marcus's recording has been viewed over 2 billion times. There are protest movements on 17 worlds demanding better treatment for companion creatures. You started a revolution. Reed looked down at Pip, who had fallen asleep against his shoulder. The other 2 children were also sleeping, safe in Soft Glow's embrace. The Moth's gentle glow pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat made of light. I just wanted to help some kids and their Moth, Reed said quietly. Sometimes that's how revolutions start, Lily replied. One person deciding that the rules are wrong and choosing kindness anyway. Over the next week, more changes rippled through Confluence Station. A section of the agricultural deck was converted into a sanctuary space where companion creatures could live and receive care. Volunteers from multiple species signed up to help. Medical personnel received training in xenobiology and animal care. Resources were allocated fairly, and nobody complained about the cost because the public support was overwhelming. The Chitauri embassy issued a formal apology for how they had treated Pip and the siblings. The ambassador who had called them embarrassing was quietly replaced. Young Chitauri across multiple worlds began openly bonding with creatures again, reclaiming old traditions their people had nearly lost. The Deepers launched a serious effort to clone and restore wave singers from preserved genetic material. Scientists who had spent careers on abstract research suddenly found themselves working on conservation biology. Children of multiple species asked their parents about the companion creatures their ancestors had abandoned. And it all started because 3 children cried for their injured guardian Moth, and 1 human doctor decided that compassion mattered more than rules. 6 months after the incident in Base 7, Confluence Station looked remarkably different. The newly created Interspecies Veterinary Division occupied an entire section of the medical bay, complete with specialized equipment for treating creatures of various sizes and biologies. Reed stood in his office reviewing applications from doctors across the galaxy who wanted to join the program. His office had a window overlooking the sanctuary gardens, a massive space that had once been empty storage areas. Now it housed dozens of companion creatures belonging to station residents. Reed watched a group of Chitauri children playing with their family's nest guardians. A lumen floated nearby with a crystal grower perched on their shoulder. A Deeper swam through a specialized water feature with what looked like a young wave singer, one of the first successful restorations from the cloning project. You look tired, Lily said, entering with 2 cups of earth coffee. She had been promoted to head of environmental systems design, creating habitats for the various creatures now living on station. Tired but happy, Reed replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. We got approval from 3 more stations to implement the soft glow provision. That makes 27 total. The revolution grows, Lily smiled. Though I heard there's still resistance on some of the older, more traditional stations. Change takes time, but it's happening. A chiming sound from Reed's desk indicated an incoming message. He opened it to find an invitation to speak at the Galactic Medical Conference next month. The topic was compassionate care and its role in advanced civilizations. Reed had given 17 similar speeches in the past 6 months. Each time the audiences grew larger and more diverse. Are you going to accept? Lily asked. Probably. Though I'd rather spend time with actual patients than talk about treating patients. You're becoming famous. Better get used to it. Reed sighed. Fame wasn't something he had wanted or expected. He just wanted to do good work and help beings who needed it. But if speeches and publicity helped spread the message, he would endure them. Pip appeared in the doorway, no longer the terrified child from 6 months ago. The young Chitauri had grown taller and more confident. They wore a junior medical technician uniform, having decided to follow Reed into xenobiology. Dr. Harper, Softglow's checkup is scheduled in 20 minutes. She's in exam room 3. Thank you, Pip, I'll be right there. The child lingered, clearly wanting to say something more. What is it? Reed asked gently. I got accepted into the youth medical program. The advanced track. Reed broke into a wide smile. Pip, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. I want to be like you. I want to help creatures and people who need it. I want to make sure no one else loses their family because nobody cared enough to help. Reed walked over and placed a hand on the child's shoulder. You're going to be an amazing doctor. Better than me, probably. You already understand what really matters. After Pip left, Reed headed to exam room 3. Softglow waited there, now fully healed. Her wings had regained their beauty, the tears completely mended. Her bioluminescent organs glowed brightly, pulsing in complex patterns that Reed had learned to read. Right now she was content and healthy. The Moth's size still impressed him. She took up most of the large exam room, wings folded carefully to fit, but her presence was gentle, and she held perfectly still while Reed conducted his examination. Everything looks good, Reed announced. Full recovery. You're a strong one, Softglow. The Moth's antenna touched his hand softly, her way of showing affection and trust. Reed stroked her fuzzy thorax, still amazed that this magnificent creature was alive because he had chosen to defy unjust rules. His communicator beeped. Commander Hollis wanted to see him. Reed smiled slightly. His relationship with the commander had become complicated. Hollis still disapproved of what Reed had done, but couldn't deny the positive changes that followed. They had developed a grudging professional respect, though they would never be friends. Reed found Hollis in the command center, reviewing station logistics on multiple displays. Dr. Harper, I have news that will interest you. Good news or bad news? That depends on perspective. The Galactic Council is proposing a universal companion creature rights treaty. They want you to serve as chief consultant during the drafting process. Reed whistled softly. That's a big responsibility. It is. You would need to work with representatives from 70 different species alliances. The negotiations could take years. It would mean less time for direct medical work. But it would mean lasting change, Reed said thoughtfully. Not just on one station, but across the galaxy. Precisely. Hollis turned to face Reed directly. I did not agree with your methods. I still believe you should have followed proper channels. But I cannot deny the results. You have changed how the galaxy thinks about the beings we share it with. That is no small accomplishment. Thank you, Commander. That means a lot coming from you. Do not let it go to your head, Hollis said, but there might have been the smallest hint of warmth in the crystalline being's voice. Reed accepted the council position. Over the following months he traveled to various worlds, meeting with leaders and scientists and philosophers. He shared stories about Softglow and the children. He explained how humanity had learned to value creatures that couldn't speak, but could still love and protect, and matter. Some beings understood immediately, others needed more convincing. But slowly, steadily attitudes shifted. New laws were written. Old traditions were rediscovered. Young beings of multiple species grew up believing that companion creatures deserved protection and care. A year after the incident in Bay 7, Reed returned to Confluence Station for the dedication ceremony of the permanent sanctuary gardens. The space had grown again, now housing over 300 companion creatures belonging to residents of various species. Paths wound through carefully designed habitats. Water features provided homes for aquatic creatures. Climate-controlled zones maintained proper conditions for beings from different homeworlds. Pip and their siblings, now a full year older and thriving, gave Reed a tour of their favorite spots. They showed him the memorial garden where creatures who had passed away were remembered with small markers and growing plants. They introduced him to new arrivals, creatures that had been rescued or were part of restoration programs for extinct species. It's beautiful, Reed said honestly. better than I imagined. You made this possible, Pip replied. All of it, because you cared when no one else did. No, Reed corrected gently. I started it, but all of these people, all of these species, they chose to continue it. They chose to remember what their ancestors had forgotten. That's their decision, their compassion. I just reminded them it was possible. The dedication ceremony drew beings from across the station. Counselor Prime gave a speech about how one act of kindness had changed galactic policy. Ambassador Chen spoke about humanity's gift to the stars, the reminder that advancement didn't require abandoning compassion. Even Commander Hollis said a few words, acknowledging that sometimes rules needed to be broken to reveal their flaws. But the moment Reed remembered most happened after the official ceremony. A young lumen approached him, carrying something carefully in crystalline hands. It was a small creature, no bigger than Reed's palm, made of living crystal that pulsed with internal light. This is a light companion, the young being explained shyly. My great-great-grandmother's journals mentioned them. I found preserved DNA in old archives. Scientists helped me restore it. This is the first light companion born in over 1,000 years. The tiny crystal creature chirped softly, reaching toward Reed with delicate limbs. They want you to hold them, the lumen said. They can sense you're safe. Reed cupped his hands carefully, and the light companion climbed into them. The creature was warm and light, pulsing with gentle colors. It looked up at Reed with something that might have been eyes and made a sound like wind chimes singing. Thank you, the young lumen said quietly, for helping us remember what we lost. As Reed stood there, holding a creature that had been extinct for a millennium, surrounded by beings of multiple species who had rediscovered the joy of bonding with companion creatures, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. It had started with 3 crying children and their injured moth. It had grown into something that touched billions of lives across hundreds of worlds. Later that evening, Reed sat in his quarters with Soft Glow and the children. The moth took up most of the living space, but Reed had arranged furniture around her so everyone could sit comfortably. The children were doing homework, typical tasks that young beings everywhere complained about. Soft Glow glowed softly, her light making the room feel warm and safe. Lily stopped by with news and gossip from the station. Owen dropped in to discuss a complicated case involving a creature with bioluminescent illness, similar to what Soft Glow had suffered. Other humans came and went, and some non-humans too, all part of the growing community dedicated to companion creature care. It was domestic and ordinary and absolutely perfect. Are you happy? Pip asked suddenly, looking up from homework. You gave up a normal career to save Soft Glow. Was it worth it? Reed looked around the room. At the giant moth who glowed with health and contentment, at the 3 children who had become his unofficial family, at the friends who had stood beside him when he defied the rules, at the work he did every day knowing it mattered and helped beings who couldn't help themselves. Yes, Reed said simply. It was worth everything. Outside his window, Confluence Station orbited its star, home now to thousands of beings and hundreds of companion creatures. The sanctuary gardens glowed with bioluminescent life. Ships came and went, carrying news of the Soft Glow provision to distant worlds, and somewhere in the galaxy, other beings were making the same choice Reed had made, choosing compassion over convenience, choosing to care for creatures that depended on them. They had called it primitive, this human tendency to bond with animals. They had called it weakness, this willingness to risk everything for a being that couldn't speak or reason or contribute to society in measurable ways. But as Soft Glow wrapped a wing around the sleeping children, as the sanctuary gardens filled with life and love and second chances, the galaxy began to understand something important. Humanity hadn't brought weakness to the stars. They had brought the strength to care, the courage to defy unjust rules, and the wisdom to know that civilization was measured not by its technology or efficiency, but by how it treated those who couldn't defend themselves. And that, in the end, made all the difference.